Hello, my name is Dave Ferguson, and I am the lead visionary for NewThing, and we want to welcome you to our webinar. I think you are going to be delighted that you're a part of this. I think this is going to be some stuff and some content that you're going to be able to really apply at your church that'll make a big difference in today's environment. Our webinar today is really how to reach people in your city with the newest digital tools. I think it's something that all of us living in 2024 ought to be engaged in and interested in. And just a little bit of kind of to set the framework for what we're talking about. As you're going to hear from Marc, a friend of mine, also an expert in this topic, about 4,000 churches close their doors every year in the United States. And in the current reality, innovation is something that's absolutely vital, not just in growing your church, but really advancing the gospel. And as Marc's going to talk about in a little bit, you'll hear me, and I love this mindset too. We have to shift away from a gospel of come to a gospel of go by meeting people where they are, especially in this digital space. So over the next about 45 minutes, we're going to discuss some techniques for nurturing relationships, showing genuine care, and how to engage people actually before they walk through the doors of your church. And I think this is going to be particularly helpful to you. If you have questions, don't hesitate to drop the questions there in the chat. We would love to entertain your questions. We'll probably save most of them for the end, but as we're talking, go ahead and just leave the questions there. We'll try to get to those so we can answer the questions you have. I have Marc with me. Thanks for joining me, Marc. Marc served as the senior pastor at Manor House Church in Portland, Oregon, a very large church, 6,000 or more. And Marc was kind enough to have me out there a couple of times, and we had a good time together. And it's really just a remarkable church, just doing remarkable things in that area. But really, in some ways, this is one of the reasons I really admired Marc's work, not just there, but in Portland, but really around the world. And in addition to that, he was the chancellor at Portland Bible College. He was on the apostolic team for Ministers Fellowship International, which really is an international movement. Part of the lead team for a while with ARC, some friends of ours, ARC Association of Related Churches. He's the director of evangelism for Christian Equippers International. But maybe the most important thing, in addition to being just a good guy, to know about Marc is here's somebody who's passionate about equipping leaders, strengthening churches, and empowering outreach, particularly through kingdom kind of innovation. And I think 30 minutes from now, you're going to go like, yep, that's who this guy is. So Marc, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave, and thanks for all the wonderful comments there. I am a normal guy too, just like you, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's be honest. Not all, we know a lot of pastors of large churches, and not all of them are normal. And there's a handful that aren't even good guys,
That'd
and
be
you happen to
true.
be one of them. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Hey, let's jump right in on this topic. Um, I think a lot has changed, and give me your thoughts on this post-COVID, with just how people engage with faith communities, with churches. Um, let's go back 4 years or so. What challenges have these shifts created and how churches engage and reach brand new people?
Yeah, I think if we go back to 2020, obviously it was one of the most significant and challenging times for us as leaders. And we go back and we think of COVID, we think of our racial tensions here in Portland. We had 272 days of riots with Antifa, and you add on top of that a very toxic, an election, and all of those things combined just created this massive cultural, literally tectonic shifts in society today. And it really just and on this call is we jumped back in after the pandemic and we just tried to put all of our Lego pieces together, right? Just there was stuff scattered everywhere. We're trying to put stuff back together, not fully recognizing that there were some massive shifts in the mindset of people. And really, when we think about that, what's happened is that we're seeing that people are, since that time, they're more open than ever. Barna did a report and showed that 74% of people today, they're more open to spiritual things now than prior to the pandemic. So we're kind of living at the
Hold on, could you
crest.
hit that again? I think that I
Yeah,
hit that again. That's important. What was it? 70?
74. Yeah, 74% of people today are more open to spiritual things than prior to the pandemic. It's like fishing during the salmon run, right? I mean, people are really open. The challenge is that our strategies and the way in which we're trying to communicate to these people that are very open, it's we've created this DMZ zone in which it's like there's this disconnect. Is they're wanting to connect, but where they're wanting to connect and how they want to connect is really a challenge for us as churches because we've gone back to our old traditional methods prior to the pandemic, right? And that's significant.
And you know what, with that in mind, just real quick comment on this too, because you hear so much talk about the nuns and people aren't going to church. So I mean, both those things are kind of true. How do you gel? How do you get those things to those two things to gel? That there's so many people that are now nuns, that are not participating in church,
Yeah.
and there's less people in church. But now you're saying there's also people, 74% of people are more open to spiritual things.
Yeah, and that isn't necessarily meaning that they're just open to the gospel, right? They're open to something. And so
Okay,
it's this wild, wild west. It's this wild frontier that people are just grabbing. Again, what happened in
so
this
they're searching.
pandemic, it created these colossal voids in people, and they
Yeah.
recognize everything that they've attempted to do to fill the holes in their heart didn't work. And so they're going to reach out. The challenge is that they're sitting in places in which the church doesn't exist. In other words, they want to jump into a boat. But the boat's still on the trailer in the parking lot, right? They're looking for a boat to jump into, but our churches aren't there where they're asking the questions. And that's what's so significant about the shifts that have happened, recently. And so, there's really, if you don't mind, I think there's like these emerging shifts that are really critical. And I'm just going to share my screen and just mention a few of them. We can just look at this quickly, but
Okay.
but these are the four things that have happened just in the last 4 years that every leader, this is mission critical for us to understand. I think the first thing we need to realize is that there was a mass exodus from the church. You talked about the nuns, but even beyond that, over 20% of people who attended church prior to the pandemic, they just didn't return, right? They may be listening online or they might have just got busy doing something else. So that's important to understand. But here's the critical issue is that although people are more open than ever, they're also more reluctant than ever to engage. They're isolated. We just went through a crazy election season once again. The council culture, the division, all of those things have caused people to just isolate. It doesn't mean that they're not open, it just means that they're isolated. And what happens that in this place where they're isolated, we talked a little bit about this gospel of come versus gospel of go. And what happens is people are more reluctant than ever to walk through the door of a church because they feel unsafe, they feel intimidated, they feel hopeless. And prior to the pandemic, what happened is people needed about a 3 to 5 different connect points or connections on average before they'd walk through the door of a church. Post pandemic, that's changed to 12 to 15 different connect points. And this is staggering because I don't know of any church really that has a 12 to 15 connect point strategy to reach people repeatedly and have the patience enough to be able to allow them to get finally to walk through the door. And the biggest thing for us is this one idea, and it's so significant is that people are now wanting to make that connection digitally. And that's our life these days, right? From online dating to remote work to purchasing consumer goods. Like we live in this digital world, and what we're finding is that people are spending 7.25 hours a day in digital spaces. And that's why I call it the new Roman road, is it's because this is where people are congregating. So they're more open than ever, they're more reluctant than ever, and we keep doing this gospel of come idea when reality is we need the gospel of go to go on this new Roman road into this place where they exist and start these meaningful conversations that, to be honest, are just going to take a lot of time, just
Yeah.
simply because they feel unsafe and insecure, if that makes sense. So I think it's
Okay.
it's really important, as you ask that question, just to say, like these are the things that are really happening that we better get our mind around as leaders.
This is really interesting. I'll tell you, do me a favor, put that slide back up. I think you have the slide there.
Yeah.
Let's just, okay, because we have mostly church leaders here that are listening in. So let's say instead of church leaders, you owned a restaurant. What I'm hearing is 74% of people are more hungry than ever before. 74% of people are more interested in going out to eat than ever before.
Right.
But for some reason at our restaurant, there's been a 20% decrease. And something we know about our customers is they're isolated and reluctant to engage with us. They are not sure they want to walk through the doors of our restaurant. But if they ever did, the first thing they'd do is they'd go to Yelp or our website to check it out digitally first. So,
Absolutely. And right now there's over 70 different digital platforms. And what we're finding, we all do this when we want to go find the restaurant, we pick up and we go to either Google Maps, Apple Maps. We're going to go and we're going to say, hey, to Siri, find a restaurant near me. And so we find that this voice recognition technology and maps are all the ways in which people are searching. And here's the challenge is that churches just aren't in those digital spaces because they look at this as some kind of one-off supplemental idea of outreach that they don't want to give a lot of money or attention to. And they're going back to the traditional mailers and come and see events. And the end result is they are looking for the church, but you just can't be found. 98% of churches today, Dave, aren't even, when you say find a church near me, they can't even be found. And these are like, if we looked at Chicago where you're at and we did a search or an assessment of how many people pick up their phone every month to look at a church, I bet you it's somewhere between 8 to 10,000 people every month that are saying, hey, I'm trying to find you, but you just can't be found.
all right. So, I mean, this is both in some levels super encouraging because you're saying, no, people are searching spiritually. They
Yeah.
are searching. They are looking. They're looking for something transcendent. There's a God-shaped void. They're feeling it. But what we're doing right now, our strategies and tactics are not working because they're not showing up. In fact, fewer and fewer people are showing up. And I mean, my own experience too is, I think probably the things you talked about there, were probably true before COVID. But it feels like to me what happened at COVID is just kind of accelerated all of it.
Rapidly accelerated. Yes. And that's why, you had mentioned this whole idea about gospel of come versus gospel of go. I think if we go back to the 80s and, there was an attractional model that was birthed in Western culture, right? Western church culture.
Yep.
And so, it was all about how could we attract people through, come to my service, come to Easter, come to Christmas. And we put a lot of emphasis in being great at preaching and trying to attract people to these weekend services. And I think those are things that we need to keep doing. However, what we're seeing is that people just aren't coming anymore for the most part, which means that we got to go back to the way that actually Jesus told us to, and that was the gospel of go out into the highways and byways. And again, we put the emphasis of evangelism upon the institution and the corporate church itself, but the individual is not going to where people are at. And that's the whole thing Jesus talked about in the Good Samaritan story, right? Is that the Levite and the priest, let's just call them the Church of America today, they saw the condition, but they went to the other side. We're so busy doing church, we forget to be the church, right? And what Jesus goes on and says, he says, hey, listen, by the way, there was another guy that came along, and when he saw the man's condition, he went to where he was at. And so where are people at? And then we go back to this idea of digital space. If they're spending 7.25 hours a day in front of a digital device, we have the opportunity to reach people 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, not just 90 minutes on Sunday morning. So this is like an aha moment for the church. These people are searching and looking, and 24 hours a day we can reach into that space. We just aren't doing that very effectively.
So, all right. So you kind of started giving us some hints there. So give us some more. What are some proactive kind of approaches for connecting with people? Because I know for you, you work with a lot of churches, but I mean, your ministry was this way. We've had enough conversations. I mean, you have a real heart and passion for people that are far from God. So what are some proactive ways? And you've kind of started on that path, but give us a couple more.
Yeah, I think the first thing is church leaders, especially pastors, have to think about how do we mobilize our people to one-on-one conversations and going to where people are at. We need to go where they're at religiously, physically, politically. Like to me, we have a great opportunity right now with what just took place, and we can choose to mock, resist, or we can choose to get into that space, right? And to have conversations with people when they are hurting and they're
Yeah.
hopeless and they're desperate, right? So we need to help our people go to where people are at. Second of all, I think that we just really need to help our people understand that there's a cost to being a disciple, right? Going back to that story, the Good Samaritan, we see that this guy, we see the model when Jesus tells the story that he put him on his donkey, took him to an inn, paid the bill. Like this guy was probably busy. He was going somewhere, but he saw an individual more important than his own priorities. And that's really hard in our narcissistic or self-centered society. Like I got to take time out when I'm walking along or jogging along the beach this morning to talk to Rusty, the homeless guy. Like I can either choose to do my thing or his thing or God's thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the third is just this idea, and this is so significant, is that we have to get back to this idea of one-on-one connections.
Yeah.
Even in our church strategies, what happened is we'll do mass mailings, we'll do mass social media. We bring in dozens of people as visitors. We put them in classrooms with dozens of people, and no one ever connects one-on-one with that individual to find out what their world is like and their story and challenges. That's what I loved about Jesus. He always, whenever he was in the masses, it's interesting, he always found the one. We see Zacchaeus in the tree with the
Yep.
crowds all along the streets, or blind Bartimaeus, or even the thief on the cross as he thought about all of humanity. But he always found time for the one. And this is so critical, especially when people are so desperate and hopeless and broken. We need to go where they're at. We need to make sure that we're going to give the time and energy that's needed and be patient. They're just not going to just show up on the first invite. I mean, pastors still, again, we talk with pastors all the time and they're hoping, hey, as you guys help us reach people, we just want them to walk through the door the first time. They're married, 2 kids, 1 poodle, white picket fence. They're going to start serving and tithing the first weekend. That's no longer the harvest.
Does that person exist?
Well, pastors sure hope they do, but the reality is they just don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So those are some things for me. And again, those require not only philosophical shifts, but strategy shifts in the church today. Say, what are we going to do to actually activate and mobilize people to reach people right where they're at?
Well, and Mark, I mean, Chicago and Portland are two different places, but there are quite a few things that are similar about those contexts. And one of the things that we have discovered here at Community and really throughout NewThing too is the use of these blessed practices, which are exactly what you're
Yes,
kind of describing. And
absolutely.
I mean, what we teach our people is, I love the fact that you're candid. Hey, this is going to take a while. This is going to
Absolutely.
take a while, and it takes building relationships. And you name the number of connections you have. And so we tell our people, no, and we give them these 5 practices. Begin with prayer. B, begin with prayer. L, listen. Because I mean, in the current climate too, everybody kind of likes to get their
Right,
2 cents in. And I mean, if I tried to get an appointment like with a counselor, I mean, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait 2 or 3 months just to have someone
right.
listen to me. And so, I
That's
mean,
right.
listening can be one of the greatest acts of love. You talked about Zacchaeus. Where did that conversion take place? Over a
Right,
meal.
right,
Eat. So begin with prayer. Listen. Eat. We tell them to serve. When you do those first three, they'll tell you how you can love them, and then you'll
right,
get a chance to share the gospel story, along the way. But just like you're describing, no, we have to make those connections. It's going to take time. Um, I don't think we got so much to learn from you about how to do this digitally, but we're trying to
yeah,
do exactly that, what you're describing relationally. And I think this is terrific.
yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you what, let me do this. What kind of digital strategies and tools can churches then use to adapt to some of these cultural changes that that we've been talking about to improve their outreach and assimilation and connection process.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, well, I've had the privilege of sitting down with some leaders, post-pandemic and having a pretty brutal conversation about the shifts. And so, we begin to take a look at, what just took place and ask the why question. Why did it happen? What's the issue, and how do we address this challenge that we're facing? And so it was out of that we put together actually a company called VisitorReach. And what we tried to do, we call it, this is by pastors for pastors, but we wanted to reach people where they were at. Like, let's keep doing like your blessed model. We still use that today in our church. I talk about people to people all the time. I brag on your book. I mean, what a great one-on-one strategy for people to embrace. But as a church as a whole, how do we reach the masses in digital spaces that, these 74% of people?
Yeah.
And so we created this digital outreach strategy and tool. It's using technology, AI technology. And what we're trying to do is seamlessly connect people, those 74%, especially people that are new to an area looking for a church or on a spiritual journey. AI gives us the ability of identifying the people that are most open. So this isn't just your typical social media marketing where we're just going to try to reach a bunch of people and get some likes. What we're trying to do is get engagements, which is really important. What happens is that as we begin to reach out to these people, what happens is it starts with one-on-one conversations. You know my name, I know your name, and we're immediately in this intimate conversation to begin to walk you through 12, 15, maybe 50, 60. We had one guy, 56 different connections before he walked through the door of a church. It takes
Yeah.
time. And so we basically are doing four things, when we sit down and work with the church is, the first thing we want to do is this idea of digital optimization. And so we want to come in because if a church needs to be in the digital space, we recognize they don't have the expertise in that space to get there. And so we want to come alongside. We want to leverage 70 different digital platforms. We want to look at their maps technology, voice recognition technology, put widgets on their website because 9 out of 10 people are going to come to their website before they come to their church. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that they're just digitally healthy. And so we did something I want to mention, as you said, tools, and I'm going to go ahead and put this up here real quickly. We created what's called a digital health assessment. And this is a fantastic tool. We spent 4 or 5 months, a lot of money to help a church understand their digital health. And we look at their digital voice score, their map score, their social media clarity score, their website authority score. And what happens is a church can put in information, and what our technology will do is scrub everything that has ever happened digitally with that church. And within 60 seconds, it's going to put together a 9-page report that's going to be sent to the pastor that he can now look at what are the areas that they're weak in and strong at. And so there's a QR code that's on there that you can click on right now if you're listening, as well as you can go to digitalhealth.visitorreach.com. And this is a tool. This is what we use on the back end. We want to help people, first of all, to get to this place to say, let's make sure that when someone wants to jump into your boat, that your boat's on the lake. That's the first thing that we do. The second thing we do is this idea of customized, personalized ads. And so we'll build personas of a church. And our technology is helping us to understand actually what picture and what word would best reach people in your area that are most likely to come. It's not guesswork. And so we're able to see, for instance, we have found that a picture of an individual by themselves has the lowest amount of response rate to a community of people.
Huh.
And so we can take a look at the way that a church dresses, the way that the church worships their community, and it will give us a customized ad campaign strategy so it's unique to them. And so we work really hard to make sure that that happens. Once we do the first thing, we do a digital assessment, we build all of these ads. The next thing that we do is that and I'm going to show you the screen real quickly again, is that we've developed an app, this Visitor Reach app. And so when someone sees one of our ads, they click on that and they give us their name, their phone number, and their email. So this isn't just like a like, this is a white hot lead. This is someone saying, please connect with me. I want this so much. I'm willing to give you my name, my phone number, and my email. And as soon as they click that, two things happen. Number one, they immediately get a text on their phone that starts the conversation, and then simultaneously it drops into our Visitor Reach app. And you can see it's very simple. We say if someone knows how to text, they know how to run our program. And what you will begin to see is we see somewhere between 10 to 30 new engagements every week that you start this journey. And so we open up the front door, but then we also work them all the way through to the back doors. You can see on the top there, engage, connect, assimilate. And we want to keep the conversation going one-on-one with that individual all the way until they become an active, healthy member of a local church. And then the last thing that we really do is that we just have an online ongoing coaching strategy where we have success coaches that just come alongside of the church every month. And we look at your diagnostics, your analytics, and we want to make sure that you're doing what you can do to be most effective in reaching people. And so that's kind of what we've tried to do is we look at this new, we call it blue ocean opportunity, right? It's
Yeah.
just, it's right in front of us. So we put this together. And that's what I would recommend as churches are listening to give us a shot to help us. We've got the best tech people in the nation. We've got the best marketing people. We've got seasoned pastors that are coming alongside of churches and say, hey, we're on the crest of the greatest awakening. Let's reach this harvest while we can.
All right. So when you kind of skimmed right past this, and I mean, as a pastor, this would be very interesting to me. You said you have a free assessment right at the front.
Yes.
Okay, you might put that slide back up there because there were a couple things I just thought I'd even ask you about. So on this free assessment, and you said it's 9 pages. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. But like for example, okay, I'm going to be honest. Okay, what's my digital voice?
So we find that 98% of churches don't perform well in this area. And so what we can do is we can take a look at how many people within a 15-mile drive range of your church actually picked up a device and said, find a church near me, whether that would have been Siri, Alexa, whatever it might be. There's a voice recognition technology that people are using today. And we're able to see how effective you are in capturing those people. And so what it will do is it will give you a score. Obviously, you're seeing here is that we believe we could help a church, this particular church where this report was to get to about 225 or an A. This church was at about 148 from this particular report, which would be kind of basically pretty good for a church. Typically, we see them way down in the teens or so that's what voice recognition technology is.
Okay, so I mean, and again, if someone wants to get started and just at least take a look at this, I mean, right now they could go ahead and do the digital health assessment, and I
Absolutely.
think we have the link in the chat, right? So
Yeah, the link should be in the chat. There's the QR code, or you can go to digitalhealth.visitorreach.com. So any one of those three options, it will get you it takes 60 seconds to fill out the assessment again, and you'll get an email in your inbox within 60 seconds, a 9-page report that you'll be able to take a peek at.
do me another favor, Mark, because I mean, some people who are listening in are newer churches and maybe they're small, some of them are medium churches, some are larger churches, and you've led all the above. So if you're a small church, I mean, who's running this for you? If you're a medium-sized church, are you thinking about a staff person? If you're a large church, is this something you delegate to a staff member? Or is this something, no, lots of people
Yeah,
can be
so
involved?
we built different plans, a silver, a gold, and a platinum, because we want to reach the church and help the church planner actually launch a church
Yeah.
or a church under 100 all the way up to the larger multi-site. We just did a 7-campus multi-site with 7 platinum, right? And so that's
Oh,
requiring campus pastors and a lot more energy to get them going. But it can be as simple as a super volunteer. We have a church up in Washington. They had 400 engagements in 4 months, represented a 50% conversion rate, people from engagement to attendance at their church. And it's ran by a lady who's our poster child. And she's passionate about it. And so It's probably somewhere between 2 to 3 hours a week, not at any one given time, but a couple minutes where you're passionate and diligent about answering texts. And we make it simple because we'll build what's called quick replies. They're predetermined responses to the top 100
Well, that
FAQ.
part's automated.
Yeah, and so it makes communication a lot quicker, and it also makes it much more effective because we've used church language and short links and all of those things to respond in a very rapid way that's also very personal.
Okay,
So yeah,
so
you
I'm
could have a
hearing,
staff person all the way down to a volunteer. You're going to take 2 to 4 hours a week of someone's time to really run this.
so what you're, I mean, this is not something that's just for very large. This is scalable.
It's all scalable. And like you said, I've worked with all kinds of churches, and we believe that every church has a passion to reach people. So let's just make sure that we have a product that can serve the entire body of Christ.
And if along the way, let's say, yeah, you're a church planner, but yeah, and you get social media and you get a few things that are techie stuff, but you're not a real techie. There's a coach that's available. And
Well, it's
how available and how accessible are they? And how does that work?
yeah, so they're not only available, we are committed to having at a bare minimum a monthly engagement with that church or with that individual. And so
Oh, that's
part
a
of
part of the so that's part of the package that
it's
you're
all part of
actually proactively checking on me, going like, hey, I know you're committed to this. I know you put some dollars into this. We want to make sure you're successful. How's it going? How can I help?
absolutely. Absolutely. And what we're able to find, and this is where coaching comes in, you have someone that says, hey, they text in and say, we say, hey, would you like prayer? And they say, yeah, my little daughter's dying of cancer. And we find that a church gives them a thumbs up. We're going, let me help you
Yeah,
understand why you wouldn't want to do a thumbs up emoji. So what
right.
we're going to do is we're going to coach you and say, this is a great opportunity because someone's being very vulnerable to come in and put some very heartfelt intention in your text. And so we can look at all their analytics, we can look at how their ads are performing, how the conversations are going, and we also do equipping videos and things to really just help that individual and that church be more effective in reaching people in digital spaces. But that's part of the whole plan that we offer.
And I mean, it's genuinely using technology, but the heart behind it is relationships.
It's the bottom line is and here's the key. We can do our part to bring, upwards of 150 engagements a month to a church, but it really falls on the individual to say, I need to be passionate about connecting one on one. I need to be persistent. We found that 92% of people will respond back if they text you, if you respond within 10 minutes. And so you need to be
Huh.
persistent. You need to be engaged. You know, people when they have their phone or texting, um, it they want to talk at that point. If they're saying, "Hey, I want prayer for this," they're not waiting for Sunday morning to say, "Hey, I'll pray for you." And so it really does require a person spending time one-on-one with that individual or those people on the app to be able to connect with them. Be really important part of what we do.
I hope this really creates some urgency in church leaders because again, you're saying, hey, here's the deal. 74% of people are searching for spiritual things more than they have in any time in recent history. On top of that, there's those same folks are spending 7 hours plus on some kind of digital device. And if we really are serious about the Great Commission and reaching them, then let's take advantage of this great opportunity where there's a longing for God and a hunger for spiritual things because we know where they're hanging out, we know where they are. They're on laptops like this, or iPads like this, or where's my phone? Like one of those things. 7 hours, 7 hours a day, and we can genuinely build real relationships with the people. So, like if the person does, hey, my kid has cancer, we can genuinely care for them, but we can take advantage of technology to actually reach out to them. I think
Absolutely.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, why don't you give us if other people are feeling motivated like me here, where do they go to get more information? What are some real clear next steps?
Yeah. We make it real simple. And again, I'll share a slide with you real quickly. And let me get to the correct slide one more. Um, right here, what we basically do is we encourage a church just to simply click on this QR code. It's going to take you to a little form that you can fill out that will immediately connect you to an individual to set up an appointment to have a conversation. We practice what we preach. We're one-on-one with a pastor, and so we have people that are standing by that are
So
able
if I
to.
use this promo code, it's not gonna be someone where I'm on a call and I'm waiting, trying to get a hold of somebody. Someone's gonna actually go ahead and like talk to me.
Well, you're going to click it, and you're going to immediately get a link to schedule an appointment. And so
Okay, that's cool.
within 3 seconds, you'll click that. It's going to pull up, say, hey, when do you want to talk? What fits your calendar? You click it, and immediately you're going to then have a person that will sit down. They'll do an intro conversation because we don't want to be overly salesy. We'll just go, hey, give us 15 minutes to have a conversation. And then if they like, what will happen is we'll say, hey, let's get your team together and we'll do a demo for your entire team. We call them ambassadors. They're all previous pastors. One's a senior pastor, another guy's a campus pastor. These are guys that get the local church, and they're going to sit down and say to your team, "Hey, this is what this is about. Here's how we can help you. Do you have any questions?" So if you just go to either visitorreach.com or you click on this QR code, what you're going to do is you can start your journey and you can immediately begin a conversation.
That's terrific. I'll, I'll,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, and one of the things that I mean, just personally gives me confidence too, is because I mean, I know you, Mark, and I know you're a guy who's led a church. You're a guy who's invested in church planting, loves church planters, want to see more churches planted.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't think it's in you to be kind of like leading the business and going like, unless I'm actually doing something that's going to help the kingdom. So,
Yeah, yeah,
thanks for doing
exactly.
this.
I'm so passionate, about reaching people, and I think that we're on the crest of one of the greatest awakenings in history. And this is where they're at. And let's jump into this space and reach people and help local churches that have this passion and desire to reach people to get them into the doors.
Hey, Mark, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Thanks for what Visitor Reach is doing. Thanks for what you're personally doing for your kingdom, for the kingdom, and your investment in that, and also specifically in church planters. I think we're going to see each other. It's coming soon here in Chicago, so I'm
Yes,
excited about
looking
that.
forward to it.
And but everybody,
Yeah,
I would
if you're out
encourage
at
you.
Exponential, I'm going to be there personally. I want
Okay.
to encourage you, if you're not coming, you need to book your trip and come. It's going to be a great time. And so we'll have a couple of us there. I'll spend an hour with you chatting if you come up to the booth and talk with us.
Yeah, so we'll all be there at Exponential Central if you want to come and check that out. And you'll probably be in Florida for our Exponential Global
Be
Conference
there
too. So
too.
pretty much pretty much wherever you are, I'll be, and vice versa. So
Yeah.
that's cool. So hey, thanks so much, Mark. Thanks for what you're doing for Visitor Reach. And I'd encourage you take advantage of this opportunity. At the very least, I'd go ahead and take that initial assessment and see what you learn, and then sign up for a conversation and see if this could work for you. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
God bless you guys.